A British lord taking America by storm, pun intended, yes, after getting turned down twice by former Vice President Al Gore to debate an inconvenient truth. Lord Christopher Monckton is on tour warning Americans about President Obama's upcoming trip to Denmark. He's heading there for a very big conference on climate change. Lord Monckton, a former policy advisor to British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, joins us now for Happy Hour. Lord Monckton, thank you very much for joining us. You're on this tour talking about what's going to happen in Copenhagen on climate change, and you're saying that this would be very, very bad for our country. Why?
This treaty that is going to be signed at Copenhagen, and I think President Obama will sign it, is going to create a new world government with the power to interfere directly in your economy and in your environmental affairs over the head of your elected officials. And all this in the name of saving the planet from a climate problem which very recent science has established isn't there. There is no significant effect on the climate from human activities. Therefore, this entire conference will be futile, but it will create a new monstrous world government. And in the 200 pages of the treaty that sets up this world government, although the word government is there, although the word enforcement is there to make countries pay reparations for so-called climate debt to third world countries, the words election, the word ballot, the word vote does not occur anywhere in the 200 pages of the treaty.
You also said, Lord Monckton, that virtually nobody won't sign this treaty. So now you're using words like a world government will be created, but what about also, I heard you mention transfer of wealth that'll occur?
That's right. The treaty talks about making reparations to third world countries in respect of what is called climate debt. What this means is that the treaty, which is drafted on the basis of now hopelessly outdated science suggesting that there might be a climate problem, the treaty is based on that, and so what it says is that because we in the West have burnt more fossil fuels than they have in third world countries, we must pay anything up to 2% of our gross domestic product, and in America's case that will amount to several hundreds of billions of dollars every year, to third world countries to help them to adapt to climate change that we now know from the science is not going to happen.
Lord Monckton, George Bush wouldn't sign the Kyoto Protocol because, frankly, China wouldn't. They're the biggest polluter. There will be the biggest polluter in the world if they're not already. Where is China? Is China considered a third world country? Are they going to also be taxed at that whatever rate you said the developed nations are going to be taxed to pay for reparation?
No, because the formula which I think the treaty will end up envisioning is based on per capita emissions, so many carbon emissions per head. And of course China, being a poor country, is very well down the list. So although they are now the world's largest emitter, that's simply because they're the world's largest population by a very long way. So China and India, Russia, Indonesia and Brazil, the big five poor countries, will all stand to gain massively at America's expense if this totally useless and needless treaty is carried through. But more importantly, your constitution will also suffer, because this world government, which you will not elect and cannot remove or replace, will have direct powers to intervene and to run and manage all world financial markets. That's also in the treaty.
Lord Monckton, we talked about this briefly on the show earlier this week, and that's one thing that I find very hard to understand. World leaders, very egotistical, are not going to just sign away the power over governing their own country. And if this is so terrible for our country that we're going to be paying billions to third world countries, why would our president sign it? I mean, what is the thinking behind there? I mean, he seems like a rational person. Make some sense out of that for us.
By all means. For a long time there has been a movement on the political extreme left to establish what is called a socialist international, which is combined with the idea of a bureaucratic centralist world government. Now, the word government actually appears in this treaty, and this is the kind of thing that President Obama and those who share his political outlook have long wanted. And when Sir Maurice Strong, a Canadian bureaucrat at the UN, first devised what became the structure of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, he said at that time that he wanted this to become transmogrified into a world government, and this Copenhagen Treaty has been drafted in such a way that a world government will now be created. And I think that President Obama will sign it because he and those of his political stamp prefer an international socialist, centralist world government to the free and independent constitution, which I think I'm right in saying he described on the campaign trail as merely a piece of paper.
Wow, ouch. Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm still a bit skeptical, but Lord Christopher Monckton, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
I wonder if the Brits will sign it.
And apparently, I think they are leaning toward it. Yeah. We'll have them back and we'll have to.
Nobody won't